This past Saturday night, I, like so many others across the country, sat down and watched the Bristol night race unfold. And to be completely honest, it was freaking amazing. Yeah, the Xfinity race was awesome the day before, but this one was right up there with that. When it came to drama, when it came to automatically great racing, when it came to just everything. I absolutely loved it. And it seemed like pretty much everyone did as well. Well, when you were watching the broadcast, you might have seen a few things and heard a few things. First off, guys like Kyle Petty and Dale Jarrett saying, hey, why are we having this as just the finale of the first round? Why don't we have this as the finale of the season? And then Dale Jr. also making a few snide comments about dirt Bristol compared to how good pavement Bristol is, as well as some others. Even though, let's be honest, nobody showed up to the spring race before they put dirt on it. And I gotta say, it really does seem like a valid question. Would a Bristol NASCAR finale work? Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of factors to whether it could work or wouldn't work or whatever. So I'm going to go through that today. We're going to go through the subject matter, how it could work and how it could fail. And then at the end, we're going to come to a conclusion. Could it work and should it be done? So let's start off. First off, the date. Well, how could it work? The date would have to be in September to probably the middle of October. And this is simply having to do with weather. Yeah, you could also look at the competition of Tennessee football and stuff like that for college or for NFL for that matter, but that I don't think is the biggest concern. Bristol is nowhere near an NFL team in Tennessee. I think there's a bit of a different fan base that would be watching it both on TV and at the track. The problem is weather. Weather would need to be relatively warm, I think. Now, I went on weatherspark.com. They keep track of the climate of individual places or areas in general. And here's what I found. In September, on average, the high is 82 to 73 degrees, depending on where in the month you're at. And the low is 63 to 54. Not too bad. It can get very chilly at night. I found that out last year at the Bristol night race, but at the same time, it is still relatively easy to go with. And when you look in October, the high is about 73 to 63 and 53 to 43 is the low, according to WeatherSpark. I think that's still pretty chilly. I would not want to be I was out in that in Kansas, and it was not fun. But I think that if you have it in that range where more than likely the low will be around 50 to 60 and the high will be around, say, 65 to 75, I think that's perfectly good weather for both good racing and for fans to be attending. Now, how could it fail? Well, being in the northeastern part of Tennessee in November. If you look at the average for November, the average high is between 63 and about 55 degrees for wherever you look at where the season could run, meaning that the low is between 43 and 33. Yeah, it could nearly be freezing at night. We could literally probably see the exhaust coming off of the cars. I don't think that would work. So the first thing that would have to happen is that the schedule would need to be revised in some way so it could end in either September or relatively the middle to maybe even partly the tail end of October. All right, next option here to look at, the racing. How could it work? Well, there is great racing at Bristol right now. I love old Bristol. I really do. I still think it's personally my favorite Bristol, but the current Bristol we have is the closest we're going to get, and it is amazing. Now, I want you to look back at the previous 4 points races at Bristol. We have this past year's 2021 Bristol night race. We saw a huge amount of battling both for the win and for the cutoff of the playoffs. Scratch what I said about Bristol maybe not being the best place for it because drivers might take it easy. Screw that. Bristol this year showed that it can have a ton of drama anywhere in the field. Now, look back at last year's Bristol night race at the great duel between Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch. That right there shows you, again, great racing for the win. Now, you also look at the summer race, the first race run at Bristol last year. Elliott versus Logano, seeing the two leaders basically crash each other to go for the win. Desperation for the win, giving us a great finish. And then you look at 2019, the battle between Denny Hamlin and Matt DiBenedetto. I think those 4 races right there show that this could possibly be the best racing that NASCAR has to offer. So why not put it in arguably the most important race of the year? Now, how could it fail? Well, the racing caters towards certain drivers. So if you do year over year at Bristol, don't be surprised if somebody like a Kyle Busch or a Kevin Harvick or a Chase Elliott, maybe Denny Hamlin or Kyle Larson, don't be surprised if they dominate the race, make it a boring stink show, and end up winning the championship year over year. But that's normal at any racetrack. It's a price you have to pay to be a fan, a viewer, someone in or running anything having to do with racing. So I don't think that's a horrible thing that could happen. Now, a big area to look at is ISC versus SMI. Currently, International Speedway Corporation, aka ISC, which is merged with NASCAR, has the finale. Now, how could this work to get Bristol there? Well, ISC and SMI make a deal where SMI gets the finale. Now, here's my proposed deal for it. I want to hear what you think. Bristol gets the finale, while SMI has to lose a date. I vote Texas, and ISC gets that date. I think that'd be a good trade. Now, does the people who would be making millions of dollars think it's a good trade? Well, that's where we look at how it could fail. This could really just end up being a giant dick measuring contest where NASCAR doesn't want to give up the finale and SMI doesn't want to give up a date. They don't come to a conclusion, they don't come to an agreement, and we don't get Bristol as the finale. That, I think, is the biggest thing, aside from the weather factor, standing in the way of Bristol getting the NASCAR finale. Now, another big thing to watch is the time that they have this race at. NASCAR's finale is smack dab in the middle of the NFL season, and while a lot of fans might not care about that, networks do, including NBC. NBC has rights for Sunday Night Football, as well as on Saturdays a lot of the time for Notre Dame football. So there's going to be a huge conflict of interests, and I don't think that even as big as this race would be, they're going to push NFL to somewhere like USA Network or Peacock. Now, they might put Notre Dame on the cock, but I don't think that's going to work. So, how could this work? Well, it's a Saturday night finale on NBC. They work with Notre Dame to make sure there is no conflict. Maybe Notre Dame plays on a different channel, which it does from time to time, or maybe Notre Dame just plays their game at 1 in the afternoon on Saturday, while NASCAR follows up. That is a viable option. Now, how could this fail? Well, they could keep it on Sunday, and they could either put it at night on the USA Network for the finale, or on Sunday afternoon, possibly killing the Bristol night race, and probably hurting a lot of goodwill from fans. That's a really tough place for NASCAR to be in. They could maybe add a third Bristol race. I don't think anyone would really be complaining, but let's be real, the crowd would not look too hot for at least 2 of those 3 races. Speaking of the crowd, I think they're another option, another big obstacle that we're going to have to look at in terms of how the crowd can go. Now, how can this work? NASCAR Bristol SMI announces this with plenty of time to get fans amped up for it, hyped for it, realizing that this could be one of the greatest races in NASCAR history. A massive crowd of over 100,000 people show up. You hear them over the broadcast. You feel the electric emotion of it all, and it ends up being an all-time classic. Fans come. It's just classic Bristol. How could it fail? Well, NASCAR could announce the schedule only 2 months away from the end of the current one, whatever it may be, 2022, 2023, and fans don't have enough time to really save up and flock to Bristol the way that they would if they had a lot more time. I think a good part of the reason that Phoenix is the finale is because the optics will look really good. I went to get tickets in August and it was already sold out in the grandstands. So I think it's going to look really good on TV. And then the last point we should look at is the schedule. How can the schedule add into Bristol being a really good finale and ending up as the finale? Well, here's how it works. Martinsville stays as the penultimate race of the season. It leads into the finale, tempers being at an all-time high and everyone being hot and angry going into the last race. There's plenty of emotion. There's plenty of people looking to settle grudges. It'd be the way that the schedule used to be in the 2000s and early 2010s, where it was an inverse of this, Bristol leading into Martinsville. Now, how could it fail? Well, Martinsville gets moved around. It's not right before Bristol, and maybe a more non-aggressive track where people really couldn't hit each other too much is the one that really goes in as the penultimate race. A track like Texas or Kansas or even Homestead, a 1.5 mile kind of track. Tracks that can have good racing, but more than likely are not going to have people having tempers going into the finale. There may not be storylines to this, and a lot of stuff falls flat in promotion, leading to my point I made about the crowd maybe not working. So, coming to the end of the video, what do I think? Well, I'm going to say it could work. There's going to have to be a lot of compromise. There's going to have to be a lot of different things that we may never see before. We may see Bristol get 3 races in a season, or we might see the dirt race get axed in place of Bristol being in the finale. We might even see Bristol be in 2 races in the playoffs altogether, meaning that people will have notes going into this race that are relatively fresh, relatively relevant, and just relatively there. But now, I want to hear what you think. Let me know down in the comments below if you think Bristol can work as the season finale. I really want to know what you think, why it could, why it couldn't. While you're at it, leave a like in this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel for more great NASCAR content like this. And also, I want to tell all of you who are members, thank you so much for your support. I really, really appreciate it. Now, until next time, have a good one.